All right, from really good in my own eyes to having no eyes at all, we are finishing up the story of Samson today. Welcome back, everybody, to the Words of Life. As always, I'm Adam. This is Kevin, whichever direction he is. And we're super excited to be back in the book of Judges in chapter 16 today as we finish up the story of Samson. Now, if you just read through the book and you got through 15, you'd think Samson's story is over, but alas, it is not. And the infamous last portion, the thing that Samson is most known for
yeah.
is Samson and Delilah. We're going to talk about that today. But before we do that, we're going to say hello to Kevin and catch up really quick.
Hey, Adam, how you doing?
I am great. How about yourself?
We are doing well. We just today gave our foster baby that we've had for 10 months back to her family. So she is with dad and her great grandpa and grandma. That's where dad lives, is with them.
Yeah.
And so we did that drop off today after church. So everybody got to see her day at church, say goodbye to her, all that stuff, and then dropped her off. So no kids for us for a little while.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we are.
Well, no little kids at home. I mean, both your kids are in college, right?
So no children at home at all, right? Yeah. But yeah, we are. So we came home and did some more bathroom remodels.
Okay.
We didn't have any children,
as one does,
as
right?
one does.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are no children. So sad but happy that she got to go back with her family. It's always a little bittersweet. So yeah,
it is, and you just hope for the best and hope dad keeps on being a good dad. So.
Yeah, that's right. It's we just try to do, right. You set these kids up. You do what you can for them. You introduce people to Jesus a little bit, right? In talking to them about why you do these things and stuff, and you hope maybe it plants a seed somewhere. And so,
absolutely,
we'll leave that now to God.
Well, we just started a gospel meeting with a preacher that we support named Joel. Oh, what's Joel's last name? Anyway, named Joel. He actually, from a very early age, he's got a great story. From a very early age, he decided he wanted to learn Spanish and learn how to speak Spanish. He grew up in Chattanooga, I think, right?
Right, so it's not like
just a normal kid, right?
Yeah. Right.
And then I don't know. He felt that his lot in life was going to be preaching in Spanish.
Okay.
Just a normal American kid, But he found that passion, and he's now been preaching in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
In near San Juan or in San Juan, and so he's up and. Just a really great perspective on life and some really amazing stories and things like that. So what you talked about planting seeds just made me think of what he was talking about this morning, how he's, had conversations with people that like years later have come back to say, hey, now that we've met again, I need to have lunch with you because things in my life aren't going as well as I'd like them to, and I think I want to try this Christianity thing you keep talking about. So it's really really inspirational and good stuff. So we'll be starting that all this week. So if you happen to be in the area, just swing on by, anybody, in the Oak Ridge Church of Christ in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Anyway, let's jump in. We finished, what seemed like the Samson story.
Yeah.
Because it said that he judged Israel for, 40 years.
20 years, yeah.
20,
and
20
that's
so.
Again, seems like how these stories at the beginning of the book.
Yeah, that's how they were ending.
Right? They so-and-so judged Israel 40 years, so-and-so judged Israel 20 years, so-and-so just, right? And sometimes with the additional caveat, there was peace in all the days of his life, right? Kind of like that's sort of how those stories go.
Yeah.
But we started to see this different thing happen a little bit, right? Not all the time, but with Gideon, right? After Gideon's story, you'd think, yeah, this is great. It's going to be ending. It's fantastic. And yet at the end, he builds this, he creates this ephod. He puts it up as this like war memorial to himself, and it becomes a snare to them, right? And then after that, you have all of Abimelech and Gideon's sons getting killed, and the wickedness that comes there, right? Tola and Jair, you get this quick two people that we don't really hear about, but then after that, we get the story of Jephthah, right? And so you have Jephthah and this thing, and it should be good, but then what happens, right? Then we have this foolish vow that gets made at the end of it. And then, after that, there's this conflict with Ephraim and basically civil war happening, right? So we've seen this thing begin to happen a little bit where it's, you know, these great men do these great things. There's peace, but then there's these failings that are revealed sort of later in their life. And Samson is going to follow that same sort of pattern here,
Yep.
right? Again, we get this thing at the end of 15. He judged Israel for 20 years in the days of the Philistines, right? And after he had this great victory, right? I remember the water and all of that, but this great victory he's given over the Philistines. He kills all these men. And you'd like to think that ends, but then we get all of chapter 16, right? Which
Yeah.
tells of his downfall and his failings there. As we've seen in these other ones.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, it's interesting. We've continued to see this trend as the book is laid out. The downward slide of the moral compass or the moral integrity of the nation. And it seems to be indicative every new iteration of the judges that we're seeing, where they just don't have the moral fiber that we would expect out of a Bible hero, in air
Yeah,
quotes, right?
yeah, and we certainly see there are some people like his parents, right? We get indications that they seem to be, quite devout in
Yeah,
their understanding, and they have conversation with the angel. He picks them for some reason, right? Like
exactly.
why
Yep.
does he pick Samson, right? And they do what he says, and they offer sacrifice to God, and they're even concerned, like, oh my, we've seen the Lord, we're going to die, right? Kind of a thing. They make him a Nazarite. They follow that step that they're supposed to. And when he wants to marry a Philistine, they're distraught by it. Isn't there some of the daughters of Israel, right? But that seems to be the exception, right, rather than the rule that we're finding here. And so we've seen Samson already, it seems defile that Nazarite vow by, approaching the dead carcass of the lion, those kinds of things.
Yep.
And so we're going to see that continue to play out
Well,
here,
and
right, in
and
this chapter.
he definitely has a problem with the lust of the eyes is definitely a problem for Samson.
Yeah, we
Uh,
see that sort of at the beginning, right? That
yes.
this woman he seeks out at first,
Mhm.
right? His first thing is he sees her and he wants her, and then he goes and talks to her after he's making it. Say, oh yeah, it seems okay. But his initial thing was, she's beautiful, I like her, I want her,
Yeah.
right? And that's going to play out here again 2 more times in this thing. If there is a failing that Samson has that you take as a whole, it's he has a weakness for women, right?
Yeah, and I
Uh,
think the other one would be an overconfidence.
yeah, that the Lord is with me, that these great
That
deliverances
no
He's wrought
matter
by
what I
me,
do, I've got the Lord. It's
right?
similar to the Israelites, as we'll see later on in their history, when the Ark of the Covenant is seems to be there, like, oh, we've
The
got the Ark of
magic
the
totem,
Covenant, so
right?
that
Yeah,
means we're gonna win, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And God says, well, hey, I
It's
want
not the box. That's the
your
magic
hearts,
charm,
not
right?
right, not your platitudes.
And yeah, we'll see the same thing as well when we get into the prophets, right?
Yep.
And the decline of the people, and the prophets come and they're saying, God is bringing judgment, and their attitude is, we have Jerusalem, we've got the temple. God's not going to burn down his own house, right? Like, we're good. We're God's people here. He's quick to forgive, right? In fact, Jonah even knows that. You're the Lord who forgives. Why do I want to go spend this message, right? And the people seem to have that attitude. Oh, it's fine. We'll just repent of it later and it'll be good, right? So there's this overconfidence on, we are God's people. And Samson seems to exhibit that as well. I'm God's chosen vessel to bring this deliverance.
Yep.
And so he runs into problems here for sure.
Absolutely. All right, let's jump into chapter 16, everybody. We're in Judges, the book of Judges, chapter 16, reading out of the ESV. So right out of the gates, we've
Yeah.
already seen this kind of chapter break where Samson judged Israel for 20 years. Then chapter 16 starts as Samson went to Gaza, and there he saw a prostitute, and he went into her. The Gazites were told, Samson has come here, and they surrounded the place and set an ambush for him all night at the gate of the city. They kept quiet all night, saying, let us wait till the light of the morning, then we will kill him. But Samson lay till midnight, and at midnight he arose and took hold of the doors of the gate of the city and the 2 posts, and pulled them up, bar and all, to put them on his shoulders, and carried them to the top of the hill that is in front of Hebron. All right, so just a super flex,
Yeah. Right.
I guess.
It's a strange story, right? That's it. You think, and
That's
then
it.
what happened, right?
Yeah.
And I think the reason the story is here is likely to set up the next one, right? That
Yes.
hey, I go. So look, well, there's problems right off the bat, right?
Right out of the
It
gate.
starts off, he goes into Gaza, okay, and he sees a prostitute and he goes into her, right? This is a problem, obviously, that he's decided to chase down prostitution at this point in his life. But why is the story here? Again, it shows this failings of his lust for these women, and also I think it's setting up the fact that they set this ambush. And like you said, he's getting this overconfidence in, like, he just gets up and tears out the gates and the doors and the posts of the city and carries them up the hill, right? And just they've locked up the city against him. He says, "You think gates can stop me? I'm Samson," right? And he just carries them off and goes and does his thing. And so I think the purpose of this story here is to sort of set up, okay, now you get a little bit of insight into his failings with Delilah here, that he just thinks, and he'll see it over and over again.
Yeah.
I'll just shake it off. I'll just shake it off. I'll just shake it off, right? No one can stop me. I'm the mighty Samson. And it doesn't matter what I'm doing, right? That I'm in with a prostitute when this happens, right? If God was going to punish me, wouldn't he? Right? Like, it's fine. I got it. He's always with me. And I think that's really the purpose of the story, is just to give us maybe an insight into his psyche a little bit. I don't think it's just randomly here for.
Yeah. Well, I think it would also just, it's one good example of two things. One, his moral degradation, right?
Yeah,
His moral
right.
decline. And two, the reason he had a reputation that of being somebody to be feared, which is why they
Yeah.
would set up, who would set up a giant ambush for one guy?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So Samson obviously had a major reputation of being somebody who should be feared and who needed to be removed
Yeah.
because he was anti-Philistine. He killed 1,000 guys with the jawbone of a
right.
donkey, right? And so yeah, they were afraid of him. They wanted him removed, and Samson's like, nah, I'm just gonna ignore your threat and flex on the way out, right?
And it's hard to say when this is,
Yeah.
right? Is this during the 20 years? Is at the tail end of this 20 years? I mean, clearly the Delilah story is at the end because it's going to end with his death, right?
Yep.
But I tend to think it's where it is because it's sort of following. This is the beginning of the decline, right, if you will. And so that tells you something. That tells you that also these people have been holding this grudge against him for 20 years, right? Like, they've not forgotten what has happened. They've not forgotten how he killed the 5 men to take the clothes, to give the clothes out, of 30 men to take the clothes and give the clothes to the people. They've not forgotten the destruction of all of the standing grain 20 years ago and that, economic loss. They've not forgotten the 1,000 men that he killed, right?
Yeah.
He's been able to judge and bring peace to Israel in some sense for 20 years, but they've been waiting for an opportunity, right, to sort of get back at him, if you will. It's not just, okay, we're even, as he seemed to think, right? Now we're even. You did this with my wife, and I did this with whatever, and now I'm innocent, right, of whatever I do after this. And so now it's that is not the case. They're waiting. They've still got plans for Samson.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's pick it up in verse 4 there, Kev.
Yeah, so it says, after this, he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, seduce him and see where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, and we may bind him to humble him. And we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver. So Delilah said to Samson, please tell me where your great strength lies, and how you might be bound that one could subdue you. And Samson said to her, if they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, then I'll become weak and be like any other man. And the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried, and she bound him with them. Now she had men lying in ambush in an inner chamber, and she said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he snapped the bowstrings as a thread of flax snaps when it touches the fire, so the secret of his strength was not known. So we get this interesting setup here, right? We roll immediately into another woman, right? And that's why I sort of think like this is just setting up, and it kind of gives you a mindset into maybe where Samson is at, right?
Well, and here's what's crazy. So it never talks about Delilah returning the love.
That's right.
And
it doesn't say she loves him.
Correct.
No.
And based on her actions, it looks like she's always looking out for number one. She's looking out for her own interests always. And commitment to Samson was never part of the bargain.
Yeah, it appears that that's the case, that they find out, and she sometimes finds out that, oh, Samson has come and he's enamored with this woman, right? And she may or may not have any interest in him because they then come to her and say, hey, seduce him and then figure out for us, right? It's not like, oh yeah, and so they were together for a while and things were good and everything was great. And then they
Right.
come to her and, like we saw with his wife, effectively, right? We're going to burn you and your father's house to death, kind of a thing. It's like, hey, wait a minute. You might have an in with him. Chase that. Go after that.
Yeah.
Seduce this guy. Get him wrapped up. Figure out where his strength is. Yeah, we have no indication that Delilah has any care for Samson
Yeah.
other
I mean,
than the money that
she
she's
may
going to
have
get out
been
of it.
a Philistine patriot, and you
Yeah,
know,
sure.
and who
Yeah.
know? We have no insight other than you can assume that Samson. Apparently, everybody knew that Samson was hot for Delilah. He was
Yes.
wooing her, probably wooing her in some way,
Yes.
shape, or
Right.
form, so that it was at least public knowledge that Samson loved her.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we need to be careful here as well because we'll see this statement that he loved her. Right.
Yeah.
And really, as you kind of go through the story, it appears that he just lusts after her, right?
Yes.
That's really what's going on through this thing. So they come and say, hey, and there's some interesting pictures here, right? Some parallels, perhaps, a little bit that might be foreshadowing a little to Jesus and betrayal for money and
Hmm.
these kinds of things. Maybe, but there's a picture there, a little bit of that. Hey, we're going to covenant with you to get this guy, right? And hey, do this for us, and we're going to pay you for that. And she takes that offer up. Now, I don't want to say to be fair, but they're not offering her 30 pieces of silver. This is a sum, right? They're saying each of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver. Usually, when you read about the lords of the Philistines, it'll talk about the 5 lords of the Philistines, right? Like that's a pretty common phrase. You'll see the 5 cities that they sort of hold. So if that's true, and it's that group, we're talking 5,500 pieces of silver. They're coming to her with a substantial amount of money. They're offering
Yeah.
her to take him in, and she's about it. Okay, great, deal, done, right? And we'll see later that she'll even say, I know for sure this time. Make sure you have the money with you, right? Bring the money in your hand, kind of a thing, right?
Yep.
So she's clearly doing this for love of coin, not for love of Samson, right?
Yeah. Another interesting thing that I've never really thought about before. They had made an assumption
Yeah,
that there was a trick and or something
yeah,
physical that was enabling him to have this strength.
yeah. He's got some sort of superhuman ability of strength that appears, and so it's got to come from some, magic charm
Yeah.
or some whatever. He's made
I
some
mean,
deal with some god, and
this
there's got to
had to
be
have been
a
where the writers of Superman came up with the idea of
kryptonite.
kryptonite, right?
Sure.
Then that's really what they're trying to find out. Hey, what is Samson's kryptonite? You got to find out for us, right? Anyway, I never really thought about that before, but I don't know if it was like just a cultural, mythology based assumption.
Yeah, that's generally my assumption there, right? Is
Yep.
that okay? He's got this thing. He's got to be empowered by some god, some deity, right? And so, if that's the case, then there must be some way to either
Counteract
put him
the
out of
other, yeah.
favor with that,
Yep.
or there's got to be some trick, right?
Yep.
Because again, remember they're under the assumption certainly that these gods are local or these gods have power over certain things, right? And so we'll see these things sometimes where we'll talk about, oh, there's the god of the hills and ours is the god of the valleys. So if we get the fight down here, then we'll be able to overpower, right? Because they'll have no
Yep.
power here. And so maybe it's something similar to that, right? Where
Yeah.
figure out which god he's serving and whatever it is and whatever the trick is, and then we'll do we need to move him somewhere? Do we need to, is it a Poseidon situation, like, well, if we get him out on the ocean, then we'll have like the home field advantage. But they're clearly think there is some way that we can subdue him. Not that just it's impossible, right? He's invincible.
Yeah.
And so they're looking for that trick, that out, if you will. And the things he gives her are I don't know, ludicrous. Like it seems so randomly strange that
Right.
why would you believe this would actually work? Like,
Yeah.
really? Like, so there's
Well,
clearly
and
some sort of superstition going on for
what's
sure.
crazy is she's fronting some. I mean, she had to have hired these guys to lay an ambush, right?
Yeah.
So she's like
Yeah.
fronting the money on this anti-Samson campaign,
Yeah.
while having him in her bedchambers. It's just so like this is just a crazy story.
Yeah, it is crazy, right? And again, what seems strange to me is it seems as though after the first time, right, that if I'm Samson, I would have been out,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm going, wait a minute, you asked me, I told you, you then immediately used it against me.
Yeah.
And it's not, as the story sets up, it's very clear that she says she has these people lying in an inner room or a chamber. It's not like they're in this house And then she's like, oh my goodness, we've been surrounded outside. They just happened to show up. No, they're in the
Right.
next room, right? Like he has to know that she's setting him up, right? Like, and then if it didn't happen once, wasn't it? It's going to happen 3 times, right? So
Yeah.
it's just this strange thing. But
Well, and
again,
this is where the overconfidence of Samson and
right.
his cockiness just really comes out, because he tells her he had to have known full well that she was going to try to bind him.
Yes,
Maybe he
right.
just let her bind him.
Right.
I don't know.
And that could be some of it too, right? It
Right?
almost feels as though this thing, and some of these ones, right? You later will get this picture where she makes him sleep, right? But here it's just like, and she's like, it's like, oh, I have these things. Let me just tie you up with them. He's like, okay, tie me up, right? And
Yeah.
and then she's like, oh, the Philistines, and he just snaps them off. There's no indication that he wakes up, like which we'll see very clearly in the last story. And so it is almost like these other, I'm seeking occasion against them. Yeah, bring some Philistines so I can slay some more of them, right? Like they'll think I'm whatever, and then they'll come, and then I'll be able to like get some more of them, right? And let's do it again, and I'll be able to get some more of them, right? And so it gets really interesting in the last one, I guess, right? Because here it could just be, I know this is not true, and I know she's trying to get me, but hey, it's a way for me to have some more Philistine fun, right? Like I'll just smite some more of them.
Well, and extended attention from Delilah, who was obviously
Sure,
still seducing him. There's
right.
obviously a sexual element going on here, right?
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, so the secret of his strength was not known.
Yep.
Then Delilah said to Samson,
yeah,
behold, you have mocked me and told me lies. Please tell me how you might be bound. What kind of twisted weirdness is going on here? And he said to her, if they bind me with new ropes that have not been used, then I shall become weak and be like any other man. So Delilah took new ropes and bound him with them and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. And the men lying in ambush were in an inner chamber, but he snapped the ropes off his arms like a thread.
Yeah, this is sort of like that other story before, right? Where he gets bound up with the ropes, and when he gets taken out, then he snaps them off.
Yeah, he's not really that creative.
No. In this case, he's like, oh, I've done this before. I know this works. But, let me give you this. And there's some level of upping, right? In one case, like bind me with these lives or these bowstrings or whatever. It seems ridiculous. Why would that even work on a normal man, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, well, ropes would work. If it was ropes, it would have worked, right? Okay, but they had to be new ropes, not used ropes. But he knows that's not going to work either. So she tries that, right? And the next one is going to get a little closer. But he has to know, right? It's obvious he knows what's going to happen. And he's, but she has told him, you've lied to me, right? And so let's try it again. And it's basically the same result as the previous one, right? And so, then he gets to this next one there in 13. Then Delilah said to Samson, until now you've mocked me and told me lies. Tell me how you might be bound. And he said to her, if you weave the 7 locks of my head with the web and fasten it tight with a pin, then I'll become weak like any other man. So while he slept, Delilah took the 7 locks of his head and wove them into the web, and she made them tight with the pin and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he awoke from his sleep and pulled away the pin, the loom, and the web. Right, so perhaps now it's interesting, right? Now we've at least gotten to something hair related, which, to her may not mean anything. And I don't know, right? I don't know if Samson knows. It seems like he does somehow, that his unshaved head, the sign of the Nazirite vow, is why he's in favor with God, right? Even though he's broken that vow, but the sign of it visibly, the hair, because now he's getting closer to home, right? Because this is a weird one. It's not about being bound or anything. It's like, well, if you take my hair and you put it in like a weaver's loom, and you kind of do it up as though you're sewing it into a rug, right?
Or just you braid my hair, right?
Yeah, and you secure it with this pin, right? Yeah. And it's a statement. And so he awakes, he pulls the pin, the loom, and the web. So he is like in this weaver's loom, right? She's set the loom up next to him. She's tied his hair up in this thing and secured it with a pin. And, that might work. It would seem like for a normal man. Like, I don't know. I don't have hair. You don't either. But if you had really long hair and I bound it up I basically sewed it into a rug effectively, right? And I secured it in there. in such a way that you got the waft and the weave and it's all now locked in your hair, I mean, you'd be stuck, right? You can't just, you know, pull your hair out or cut your hair off. Your head's trapped, right? It seems like that might work for a normal man, just like the ropes would have. But it's weird, right? But she's kind of like, oh, okay, let's give this a try. And so she does that. And again, this is kind of an interesting thing of strength. They don't think about it very often. The rope snapping, we think, yeah, it's impressive.
Yep.
But to be able to like pull out the pin, this thing that's holding your hair, to be able to pull it out with your neck and your body and your hair doesn't snap or anything, it just pulls the pin right out, right?
Yeah.
It's a supernatural, weird sort of thing that occurs there. Again, but like we've said, we're getting closer to home, right? Samson is getting closer perhaps to him understanding a little bit about it, because it's a strange thing to suggest, right? He doesn't say if they did it with chains, it would work, right? Let's keep upping the binding method, right? So no, weave my hair in a loom. That would work. And so she tries it. And this time we'll get the thing here of she made him sleep, right?
Yeah.
And that seems, again, somewhat interesting, because the previous times you don't get that. It's just like she ties him up, right? This time she makes him go to sleep, and then while he's sleeping there, she just takes his hair and weaves it all up in the loom. But again, the result is the same, right?
Yep.
He snaps it, he pulls it out, he's delivered.
So I think that there's a couple of proverbs that you mentioned proverbs earlier. So this next little section reminds me of several instances of the proverbs where it talks about how a wife, like a quarreling wife, right? So Proverbs 19:13, for instance, a foolish son is ruin to his father, right? So if you got a son that's just foolish, man, it just crushes the dad, right? And a wife's quarreling is a continual dripping of rain.
Yeah.
Okay. So anybody ever had like a water leak in their house? Like, for instance, we currently have our shower head.
Okay.
Drips.
Sure.
Like I need to change I've got the part. I just haven't turned the water. I got to turn the water off the whole house. And it's a whole deal, right? I just haven't taken the time to do it. So it's one of those honeydews that I've been putting off. But we have a continual dripping in our shower, right? And I don't like hearing it.
Eventually it'll drive you crazy and have to do something about it, right?
Yeah, right? So here in this verse says a wife's quarreling is a just a constant annoyance, right? What's another verse in here? The same.
My favorite one, I don't remember where it is, but it's better to live in the corner of a roof than in a broad house with a nagging wife, right? Or contentious woman, depending on your translation, right? And this is perfect. This is what happens here exactly, right? He's with her, and we'll see this idea that it's, how can you say that you love me? Oh, all right. And we haven't read it yet, but verse 16, when she pressed him hard with her words day after day.
And urged him.
His soul was vexed to death. Right. Yeah. It's exactly that proverb, right? That just the constant nagging of him in this way is what eventually drives him to be like, fine. Right. Here it is. This other proverb that I'm reminded of as well, early in the Proverbs, later on you get sort of these one-offs, right? But early on, Solomon is talking about to my son, and it's always about be aware of the harlot, be aware of the adulterous woman, be aware of these things. This is exactly that situation here, right? This is exactly that he's gone into this woman and she is a problem, right? It's Proverbs 7. It'll talk about where's the verse? 20. The whole thing's about this woman, and when you get down to 25, 26, let not your heart turn to her ways. Do not stray from her paths. For many a victim she is laid low, and all her slain are a mighty throng. Right, her house is the way to Sheol, and her going down to the chambers of death. Right, and Samson is just in there. Right, he's just in there. He's constantly there. Proverbs 6, 27 will say, "Can a man carry fire next to his chest and his clothes not be burned?" Right, and yet that's exactly what Samson is doing. Right, he's just playing with fire. Right, he's dealing with this adulterous harlot of a woman, and he thinks, I'm not going to get burned by it. And he thinks that, but that constant nagging of her, right, wears him down, like you sort of pointed out in those proverbs there.
So she finally wears him down after the guilt trips and the
Yeah.
day after day and urgings and everything, and he finally gives in verse 17, and he told her all his heart
Yeah.
and said to her, a razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. So let's just talk about that in and of itself. Despite his inadequacies up to this point, he's at least always acknowledged that he has a vow to the
Yes.
Lord.
Whether he's keeping it or not is different,
Right.
but he understands his call from the womb that he's been called to,
Yes.
and that this is this sign of that,
Yeah.
the unshaved head.
And it's almost like Adam and Eve in the garden, right? Because they had to make a decision to believe Satan or the what's the right word? When Satan presented like, "Hey, you can be like God
Yeah.
if you choose to eat this.
Eat of the fruit.
You need to understand good and evil in a better way." Right? Doesn't that seem like something you should be pursuing?
Right.
Samson made a choice of Delilah or God.
Yeah.
He opted for human pleasure rather than the comforts and the praise and the admiration and the the blessings of God.
Yeah, because he could absolutely just get up and leave at any time.
Anytime.
Right, a city gate cannot stop him. How can
Nope.
this woman? Right, he can get up and leave at any time he wants. Right,
Yeah.
and go wherever he wants to go. And yet he's choosing to stay there. He's choosing to continually sort of. It's almost like it has become a game to him. Right, like, yeah, this is great. Right? She brings Philistines, and I get to humiliate them, kill them, whatever. We don't know what he does to them. Right, he just shakes off the things. It's like over and over and over, and just keeps bringing them to me. It's fun, right? And at this point, though, he does sort of tell her. It says he tells her all of his heart, right? And so that's an interesting thing because, um, there's no indication that Samson has been told, hey, you're going to have this mighty strength and it's going to be in your hair, right? And that if you were to ever shave your head, then that would cause this God to leave you, if you will, right? And so, but somehow he has believed that his strength is in his hair, right? Because it's all of his heart. He tells her, right? She can see he believes it, right? That this is the thing. I'm a Nazarite. That is why God is with me, and my head has never been shaved. And so I'm always curious about this story. Is it really Samson's hair, or is it the fact that he is clearly in this place saying, Delilah, I choose you over God? Right. And that's the real thing. Right. Because he could have said to her, now he certainly has come to a dead body, but there's other things. I've never drunk anything that's from the grape. If you just give me wine, I will become weak like any other man, right? That would have broken the vow as well.
Yeah.
But he doesn't say that, right? So I think it's somehow that he kind of believes that this symbol that I have upon my head is the symbol that I'm with God and God's with me, right? And when he betrays that to her, right, that's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
Right? That, hey, if I was to do this, this would be me breaking my covenant vow. This
Yep.
would be the thing, and this would cause God to leave me.
Yeah.
Sort of like you have the story of Balaam,
Yep.
right? And the story of Balaam is interesting because he tries to curse him, he doesn't. But later we get this additional information that while he couldn't curse the people of Israel, he does tell the people, hey, here's how you could get. I can't curse them, but let me give you some insight. If you can get them to break their covenant with God and you get them to go after these idols and you can get them to marry these women, then their God will abandon them, right? And then you'll be able to take advantage of them, right? Like that's what he does. And the same thing sort of happens here. Look, if you can get him to betray his God, then God will leave him. And that's, in his mind, that's how he would do that, is to cut his hair.
Well, it's interesting as we're talking about this, my brain kind of opens up into different thoughts and ideas and correlations for us today, because the Israelites had a covenant relationship with God that was symbolized with circumcision.
Yeah.
physical circumcision is not no longer a part of our covenant relationship with God. But we have a spiritual circumcision that's
Yeah.
represented in the form of baptism, right? But you and I also talked about what is it that we are supposed to be seen. What is about us? It's more character driven, not necessarily a physical representation. We don't literally put on
Yeah.
priestly
Yeah.
vestments. We don't literally put on. We don't really do any Nazirite vow type stuff that
Yeah. Yeah.
signifies us physically as followers of the Lord.
Yeah.
But we are called to let our light shine so that people will recognize that we're different,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And you and I talked about the fact that the Ephesians 5 and 6, where it talks about the armor of the Lord, right? The putting on the full vestments and
Yeah.
and all that of the Lord, the shield of faith, and the full armor of God. But we also have in Colossians 3 a whole other set of things that we're supposed to be putting
Putting
on.
on. Yeah.
And those come more in the characteristics of how we are to live,
Yeah.
right? Because in Ephesians, it talks about the spiritual warfare that we're up against.
Engaged in. Yeah.
Yeah, the spiritual warfare. But when we come together as Christians, we're supposed to be putting on kindness and love and gentleness and
Yeah.
humility and all of the things that he talks about there. And so while Samson gave up his connection to God through the physical representation of cutting his hair,
Yeah.
when we stop acting in the name of the Lord, because we're supposed to be putting on Christ in his name, and if we start acting out of character, we're,
Yeah.
we're basically doing the same thing that Samson did here.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like the hair on his head was how people knew that Samson was a Nazirite, right? And Jesus says to his disciples, right, have love for one another. By this all men will know you're my disciples, right?
Yep.
So if we don't demonstrate that, if we can't be characterized by our loving nature towards our fellow man, then we cannot claim to be Christian.
Nope.
Right, we've effectively cut our hair, right? Is what's happened there, and yet we still then think sometimes, but it's okay. God is with me, right? And He'll still have favor toward me, and He'll still give me all these blessings, even though I've removed any sign that I am His and He is mine. And we think, and that's what's going to happen here, right? So let's read it real quick. It says in verse 18, when Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, so she sees something different about his response this time, right? She sent and called the lords of the Philistines, saying, come up again, for he's told me all his heart. Then the lords of the Philistines came up to her and brought the money in their hands, and she made him sleep on her knees, and she called a man and had him shave off the 7 locks of his head. Then she began to torment him, and his strength left him, and she said, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. And this is what's interesting. And he awoke from his sleep and said, I will go out as at other times and shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. And the Philistines seized him and gouged out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza and bound him with bronze shackles. And he ground at the mill in the prison. But the hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. Right? So this picture here this time is, even though he's told her what he believes is true, that if you shave my head, then I will be as other men. Right? And it's all his heart this time. Yet when it happens, I mean, he can't wake up and be like, oh, I didn't know my head was shaved.
Right.
Right? Like, that can't be the reality of it. He must know it, and he still thinks
a lifelong head of hair like that would have weighed quite a bit.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
right? Like, I shave my head every 3 or 4 weeks, right? And my hair never gets that long.
Right.
And I can tell the day I shave it when I walk out, like, ooh, the air conditioner's blowing colder, right? Like, I know, right?
Yeah.
And so Melissa, Melissa has a great head of hair.
Yep.
And, when she got lupus and it was falling out, she shaved it, right? When it was just patchy and she found out what it was, she shaved it all off and got a wig. And when she shaved it off, she would say she'd wake up in the middle of the night while she's asleep. And she would wake up because her head was so cold. While she was asleep, it would wake her up because she's so used to having hair on her head. And she would get a baby receiving blanket. We'd have foster babies. She'd wrap it around her head, right? So if she knows that it wakes her up from a sleep, my head has been shaved, right? Samson knows. And yet he still thinks anyway, it will be as every other time. It doesn't even matter, right? God is still with me. I will still shake myself free. It won't make a difference, right? And so even though he's given up all the things now of the Nazirite vow, he still thinks God is with him. And we will do the same thing, right? I've given up all those things that make me Christ-like, right? I'm not demonstrating love, the thing that God says, this is how people know you're my disciples. And then we still think, God is with me. It'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
I'll do just as I've always done.
Well, and so we've talked about, you and I offline, we talked about some of the other New Testament examples that kind of fall in line with this idea of this false hope with their relationship with God, right? Right out of the gates, the Sermon on the Mount. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. On that day, many will say to me, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many mighty works in your name? That all might be true.
Yeah,
They
right.
may have done all those things.
Yeah.
And then Jesus said, I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a very serious reality check for some people, that they may believe that they have a right relationship with the Lord, but if it's not a true one, he says,
You're right.
I don't know you.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Oh, Revelation chapter 3, Church of Sardis.
Yeah.
You have the reputation of being alive, but you're dead. What are some other ones here? Oh, Philippians, when Paul talked about the fact that his imprisonment was actually a net positive because people were emboldened to preach the word. And then he said, some indeed preach Christ from envy and rivalry, out of selfish ambition, not sincerely, but thinking to afflict me in my imprisonment. And then he goes on to say that regardless of their motivation, I rejoice because Christ is being preached.
Sure.
But the motivation behind their piety or whatever,
sure,
was pretty false. And so we see Samson here assuming that even though he had given of his heart to somebody else.
Right. And that's what's interesting. He gave his heart. That's this key phrase, right?
He kind of held on to that ego.
Yeah. And
just thought,
it'll be his other times. And the story is always strange to me too, though, because we do get this statement here, which is somewhat interesting in 22. The hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaved, right? Almost as though, the way that the writers, the judges present it is that his strength is in his hair, right? It is almost in this sign of the covenant, right?
Or at least in the vow.
Right. And so it's in this, like, as his hair begins to grow again, right? It's the sign of this vow being restored, if you will, right? And, it's hard to know, right? We don't know Samson's real interior motivations there after he's down in the prison. I can only imagine when he's down in the prison grinding and he's lost his eyes, that he's come to some level of repentance there, perhaps, right? You would imagine, what else would you do there? And, there was things about the Nazirite who, accidentally stumbles upon a dead body, right? Then he goes through the days of purification, because if you touched a dead body or near a dead body, you were just unclean in general. And then he was to shave his head, right? And then your hair would begin to regrow and you could restart your vow. And so that's almost like the picture, I think, of what we're getting here, is that he recommits to this vow, if you will, while he's imprisoned. And we do get a little picture here as well, sort of, right, loosely, of this foreshadowing type of the Christ kind of thing. Well, he's basically dead in the prison, and yet he will rise to glory again here in this final act. And there is redemption that comes from his death, and these kinds of things that we see here a little bit in the end of the story. But yeah, he's gouged out. He's there. He's gone. He's whatever. And I think it's strange that the Philistines, right, certainly must notice his hair begins to grow back. And they believe that his hair is his strength, right? Like they certainly believe that's his magic mojo, right? And yet they let it grow, which I would have thought, man, I'd be shaving that thing all the time just to make sure. But it shows some of the Philistines' ego here too, that perhaps they think he's blind now. We've got him. He can do no harm. Maybe if he gets super strong, he can mill more grain for us. I don't know what they're thinking, right? Like, He can't harm us because he's blind now. And yet, what's going to happen here is we get the end of the story. And I know we're getting short on time there, so maybe we just pick up and grab it. It says, the Lord, the Philistines gathered to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and to rejoice. And they said, our God has given Samson the enemy into our hand. And when the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, our God has given our enemy into our hand, the ravager of our country, who has killed so many of us. And when their hearts were merry, they said, call Samson that he can entertain us. So they called Samson out of the prison, and he entertained them. They made him stand between the pillars. And Samson said to the young man who held him by the hand, let me feel the pillars on which the house rests, that I may lean against them. Now the house was full of men and women. All the lords of the Philistines were there. And on the roof there were about 3,000 men and women who looked on while Samson entertained. And Samson called to the Lord and said, O Lord God, please remember me, and please strengthen me only this once, O God, that I may be avenged on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. And Samson grasped the 2 middle pillars on which the house rested, and he leaned his weight against them, his right hand on the one and his left hand on the other. And Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. And then he bowed with all his strength, and the house fell upon the lords, upon all the people who were in it. So the dead whom he killed at his death were more than those who he had killed in his life. Then his brothers and all his family came down and took him and brought him up and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of Manoah his father, and he had judged Israel 20 years.
It's a crazy story. So I just did some quick math.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I let Jim and I do some quick math.
Sure.
So I'm like, how large of a building would this have had to have been for
Sure,
3,000 people to be on the roof?
On the roof, right, yeah.
Right? It estimates 21 to 25,000 square feet.
Okay.
Which would have been about a third of a football field.
Okay, sure.
So we're talking about a big, giant building that Samson took out by knocking down the pillars. So
yeah, and so these pillars, right, are clearly load bearing in the key weight thing, and also, of course, when you push them over and they fall, how do they fall? Right? Is it like a domino scenario where it continues? But it pulls the whole building down effectively, and so God grants his request, right, if you will.
Yep.
And so he's able to take this place down and give a deliverance that was about to get reversed, right? 20 years he's brought deliverance to the people. His failings are about to undo that.
Yep.
And then this reversal here sort of preserves it and gives peace to the people for some period of time, at least from the Philistines, who are devastated by the loss. And it is this thing, right? It's almost, again, people will sometimes say, well, why is God doing? Who knows? But there is some insight into the Philistines saying, our God Dagon has given us. Our God Dagon has done this thing and delivered him to us. Oh, bring him out here and let it be a circus for us, right?
That whole phrase is going to crop up again in the future, which is another funny story about.
Yeah. And so, it is God effectively saying, let me demonstrate my power over your God Dagon, right? In this case, and use Samson to do that. I'm not going to let that slide, if you will, right? And so he tears down the temple, right? Is effectively what they're doing, the house, right? It's the temple of Dagon is where they're at, right? And he kills this great number of people, and all of these people who are there, and just I don't know what Samson was doing to entertain them, right? Maybe they're just being there and they mock him and laugh at him, and that's entertainment, right? But he does say, call Samson out of the prison, and he entertained them, and the people were watching while Samson entertained, right? I'm like, is it just that he's standing there and they're mocking him? That's my assumption. I don't think he's doing a strength tricks, or a dancing bear kind of action.
Something,
but
who knows,
just him there and then being able to see him debased, right? Is their entertainment at him, which again tells you something about their, one, the type of people these are, and two, their great loathing for Samson, right? And the things that he's done to them. That
the ravager of our people,
the things they call him, and just the fact that here he is with his eyes plucked out, and he's a slave, right? So he's naked, or he's maybe mildly humbly dressed in some way, and they just look at him and say, oh, what a pitiful guy this is, right? Ha ha ha. And they're entertained by his debasement. And so that's maybe another thing for us, I would say, just a warning. It's not really directly the point of the story, I think, but just as an aside, we should never be entertained by the debasement of our fellow man, right? Regardless of if we think they're good, bad, or otherwise. It should never be our entertainment. That's just an awful sort of thing. And I say that given our current climate, where I know that some people think it's funny that other people, whether you think they're right, wrong, or otherwise, are debased, humiliated, brutalized, abused. That's never should be funny to Christians, right? That's not what the people of God are about. So certainly let that not ever be something that we think is, ha ha ha, they got theirs, they deserved it. Isn't that funny,
Yeah.
right? That's
It
not who we
it
are.
is, sometimes the natural reaction sometimes, and
Oh yeah, of humanity.
when we see bad things happen to bad people, there's a part of us that wants to rejoice. But just remember that, vengeance is God's
Yeah,
domain,
that's
not
right.
ours.
Yeah, yeah,
And we're supposed to be letting our light shine,
yeah.
not rejoicing that evil is done to evil. So
That's right.
yeah,
It's not the Christ-like way; it's the Philistine way, right? So
absolutely.
certainly remember that. Let's not be Philistines out in the world this
All
week.
right. So don't be Philistines. And there you have it. We're out of time, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the story of Samson. We're going to get into some gruesome stuff coming up here in the end of Judges.
Yeah.
I'm not really looking forward to covering it, to be honest with you, but we're going to get through it as best we can. So until then, God bless, and we will see you next week.